Come on now. Come on now. It is Friday. It's July 8th. I hope you're super, super pumped up. I know I am super pumped up. And why? Because it's the day the Lord has made. We're in fact going to rejoice big time. We're going to be glad in it. Because this is a special edition following, another special edition of PaleocratDiaries. Ow! Come on now. We got to rock out hard. We're going to give it everything we've got. Man, I feel at home. Boy, I loved being on Mass of the Ages. I hope you liked it too. Cameron O'Hearn, he's a pretty dope dude, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie, the guy's pretty awesome. But this is my home. This right here, this is my land, right? This is Castle Paleocrat at the Team Tiny Dancer headquarters over at Meaning of Catholic. Meaning of Catholic, super psyched about that. And we've got to do what we always do before we enter into the Lion's Den. It's not the regular octagon today. We're going to be entering the Lion's Den because I'm going to be talking about questions and criticisms from people over in the comment section. It's going to be nuts. I got to say, is that they actually impressed me a little bit. It wasn't quite as toxic as I imagined it would be. It was a little bit. I will try, in fact, to avoid that. Emphasis on try. Maybe a little Easters. But it's all the more reason why we have to resolve deep inside. Never give up, son. Keep on smiling. And remember, we too, one day, are going to die. And because of that, we got to do, like, in fact, Cameron O'Hearn. We got to dream bigger thoughts. We need to think outside the box. Say, God, speak. Help me out. Lead the way. Do a novena. Do what you got to do. And once you figure that out, give it all you have. Every thought, every word, every deed to Christ the King, because he's on high. He's on high. All power in heaven and on earth right now. So we're not afraid anymore. There's no more shame. There's no more fear. Because we're rocking it up. And we're doing that, right here. And right now, in fact. Right now, as the music comes to a close. If you have not seen the special edition dialogue, and it was a huge honor, it really was, not only because I was able to speak with Cameron O'Hearn, he's the writer, director, and producer over there at Mass of the Ages, the trilogy, but also just even being able to talk to him in general, but also that they allowed me to do something that they've never allowed anybody else to do. Okay, it's one of these things. It's another thing to add to the list because, in fact, the empire is expanding. It should be obvious. It should be obvious, right? That's why I got these glasses. I'll take them off in a minute. But the thing is, they allowed me to do something that they have never allowed before, and that is for someone outside of their team to host a show where they interview one of the people from the team on their channel. So it may be a little bit confusing, but the fact is, PaleocratDiaries has an episode on Mass of the Ages on their channel. So you're like, where do I find you? I'm like, it's all over the place, literally. Literally all over the place. It's the way we work. It's the way we do it. And so speaking of the way we do it, real quick word from the sponsor, okay? And that is the SAINTMAKER. You got to pick it up. You got to do what you got to do. Super psyched about that. It makes for, in fact, a really great, at any point, right? At any point, right? They do it 4 different volumes. But at any point of the year, pick that bugger up. It's going to change your life. If you do this, okay, even just having it, just the osmosis of having it, you're going to be psyched about it. It's going to at least get you in that place where you're beginning to take a more comprehensive look-see at your life. And when I say comprehensive, I ain't joking. It's serious business. Where you're thinking about the future. You're not just thinking about the day-to-day, waking up and going along like a drone. You are processing your mission, your purpose, right? With Christ first. With Christ first. It's fundamentally, people say, well, it's a planner. Well, that's true, but it's a planner to get you through and through to heaven, okay? To make you a saint, to mix those things together that say, how do you plan your life, and how do you plan your life where Christ is the focus? How do you do that? And it has so many awesome suggestions. So I'm going to play this quick promo from them, and we'll be back right after that. If you already have the SAINTMAKER, okay, and if you need yourself some coffee or some booze, it's late enough. We're allowed to say that, aren't we? I got a little something. I might have to drink it a little bit off screen. I don't know if I get in trouble with Tim. So yeah, might drink something, but make sure you get it. you got to make sure you got your straw because this is going to be straight to the dome, this whole episode. And I'll try, as I said, I'll try my best not to be dealing with the haters because there are some, right? But we're going to go through those the best we can. And I let me one more thing. Well, I'll wait till after this. Give me 90 seconds. Here we go. Yeah, give me more than 90 seconds if this is how I'm behaving. Come on, what are you doing? What is this? This is what I meant to do. Check it out. Watch this. It's fancy. Can a personal planner really make you a saint? Not by itself. But in our day and age of addictive apps and glowing screens, we're bombarded by constant distraction, and our quest for sainthood often takes a backseat. The SAINTMAKER is the first high-performance planner for the spiritual life, made by faithful Catholics for faithful Catholics. It's a work of genius, really, fusing the wisdom of the saints with the science of personal productivity. It's rigorous, but sainthood is tough, and most of us need help organizing our time, our work, our leisure, and our devotion, because that can help you become a saint. The SAINTMAKER is elegant, fits in your purse or briefcase, and is a perfect companion for your missal, Bible, or rosary. Published 4 times per year, each season includes daily planning pages, feast days, and devotions for both forms of the liturgical calendar, goal-setting pages, confession journals, and more. It's why the SAINTMAKER is used by hardworking Catholics, like CEO of Sock Religious Scott Williams, best-selling author Sam Guzman, YouTubers like Amber Schneider, a Catholic wife Dina Barca, and Brian Holdsworth, and priests like Father Corey Stitcha. Try the SAINTMAKER out, and if you decide that it's not for you, you can send it back for a full refund within 90 days. So go right now. Find your life planner at thesaintmaker.com. Quantities are limited though, so head on over to thesaintmaker.com to order yours and to start your SAINTMAKER journey today. It's easy to do right there on the screen, saintmaker.com/PaleocratDiaries, promo code in the description below. All right, we are on track. We are entering the octagon, and this one has a big sign over top the door, the entryway, and it's called the Lion's Den. And I don't mean that in a bad way any more than I mean that we have the wolves in here, okay? And we don't mean it in a bad way about them at all. In fact, I was super psyched to speak to a number of them, and I wanted to engage. I wanted to engage, and people are complaining, saying, oh my gosh, you're not responding. And I said, because I want to do it right. And how do we do it right? By featuring them on the channel. So you got to buckle in right now, race over to your bed, reach underneath, and grab out that big, huge bin of the messenger pigeons because you got to release them buggers all over the place. Just rip that lid off. Let them go. Seriously, let them go. It's weird you got them under your bed. I know why you do, though. Because you're wanting to let everybody know in the north, the south, the east, and the west that your boy, Jeremiah Bannister, is on the air. And then we're going to rock out. We're going to rock out and have an awesome time. We're going to address various questions. We're going to address the pros and cons of the overall conversation. And I'll engage here with the live chat here as well. I'll do my best. I'm in my house, though, so it's a little bit fair. I can only imagine. I hope, man, you let people know right now. Seriously, your friends, your family, classmates, coworkers. Don't be hiding that light under a bushel. Oh, no. You don't want to do that. And why? Because the Lord, because we're doing everything we can with the gifts and talents that we have to align all of our thoughts, all of our words, and all of our deeds with the divine constitution of the visible church. We've got to do it. No man can change it. No man can change it. And at the core of this is the ultimate authority, and the ultimate authority is the Lord. And so we have to submit to Him. And the way that we submit to Him in this particular situation is respecting and recognizing, first of all, and then straight up respecting the magisterium. And within the magisterium, ecumenical council. Within the magisterium, the vicar of our Lord. And why? Because he died for the bride, the Lord. And because the vicar, he stands behind the vicar, ensuring, in fact, that we will be led to green pastures. And we can trust that right now, right in the midst of a wicked bad time and all sorts of nonsense, poo-poo trash, all around. And yet, we're led to green pastures. Isn't that a thing? And we don't have to rely on our fancy monocle. We don't have to rely on our fancy monocle that says, oh, yeah, I need to be able to investigate on my own because, as the saints say, I understand in order to believe. You got it backwards, son. You have it backwards, son. It's just true. Yeah. All right. Real quick in the comment section, because this is a community show. If there's anybody who is here for the first time, and they're like, why is this guy, why is he talking? Why is he so psyched? He didn't sound this way over on the chat. Of course not. What are you, serious? Can you imagine a dialogue that was, that's serious business. I'm dead serious about it. I'm dead serious. It is serious business. Because you want to actually be effective in what you're doing, and you're on somebody else's channel at their request, at his pleasure, in fact. But the honor was mine. The privilege and honor was mine. But it was one of these things where you say, look, you have to be able to say, all right, look, put the shades away for now. I didn't even play Danger Snow. We started out actually with Kreuzberg Nights. That's the second song you heard. We started out with that. All righty. Let's go to the window caption. I'm gonna do this. Let me make it a little eatsy bit bigger. A little eatsers. Okay, here we go. So in the comment section, because if people are new here and you are unfamiliar with how it works, number one, it's a community show, as I said. But also, we have a community outside of this. This is something that your boy, the Kaiser here, does not do but 3 times a week or so. I normally, and sometimes even less. People are like, bro, Kaiser, where are you, man? Where are you? Why are you not doing the show? What's happening right now? I'm freaking out. And they get all the weird shakes and junk. But the way that they got to get their fix, they got to go over to the Telegram chat. You can find that in the description below. t.me/thewolfpack chat. It is a marvelous place. It's a marvelous, marvelous place. Germanicus says, this should be interesting. I hope so. I hope so. Ray Ford, the Kaiser is as precise as ever. I'm assuming that has to do with the time. As always, of course, Kaiser Standard Time is king. That's the way we work here. Let's see here. Yeah, it starts whatever time, Kaiser Standard Time. Yes, that's exactly how it works. It's exactly how it works. Let's see. Hoping to stay awake. My wife, by the way, my mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife. Please say hi to her. Tell her she's awesome, man. She tolerates your boy. Okay, she tolerates. I'm a manic medium man. It's just true. And so having her be as patient with me as she is, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if it wasn't for her. Let's see. Kevin says, love the pack. Taking the knee for Christ, saying prayers, the son, with son before sleep. God bless. Bro, you are an example. It's a fantastic example in a terrible time. And it's one of those things. Let me just say this real quick before this is addressing a little bit of something that we'll talk about in a moment. But there's people, a couple of the weird assumptions, and I made it clear, at least the first part. I go to the Latin Mass. I'm a thorough at the Latin Mass. My boys serve at the Latin Mass. They don't even know how to serve at the ordinary form. They'd like to, but they don't know how. I've been in the church now, back in the church for 5 years. I was in the church prior to that for 4, And so you sit there and you go, man, like since I've been back, I think it's less than 10 times that we've been to an ordinary form on a Sunday, maybe 7 or 8 times. So we go almost exclusively to the Latin Mass. I've been to the a divine liturgy for the Ukrainian Catholic Church, probably about the same number of times, maybe more than I've been to a Novus Ordo. So in 4.5 to 5 years altogether, let's even bump it up to 20 times, 20 different weeks where my Sunday obligation was the ordinary form. But people have this idea, they're like, well, you've got a good Novus Ordo. It's true, but that also kind of proves my point. Is that if something is inherently able to be reverent, is able to have no issue that is commonly thrown at it, then that is what it needs to aspire to, period. And in fact, I want to thank Pope Francis, in fact, because he came against, people say, why doesn't the Pope ever come against the abuses? These are people who don't read what the Pope says. By and large, crypto sedes, to be quite to be factual about this, right? To lay it down as it is, crypto sedes. They don't care what he says. They avoid it like the plague. So they don't see this kind of thing. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. They've got an idea in their head as to what it is, but they do themselves a terrible disservice by not checking it out, by not reading it. In fact, they did do a good job by reading the most recent one. Yeah, Bill Smalley says, what am I watching? You're watching my favorite show. I don't know what do you mean? What are you watching? Yeah. And look, in fairness to you, Billy Smalley, Bill Smalley, most of my time has been spent on radio, okay? I'm actually a little bit uncomfortable staring at a camera in a room by myself. It's kind of a weird thing, to be quite frank. So it's more comfortable for me to, in fact, have the microphone that I do, to have the flow of the show be similar to a talk radio program. It's what I've done most of my life, okay? So most of my life, that's what it was. Yeah, but I like Enslaved's answer better. You're watching the most hyped dude in Catholic apologetics. Yeah, no, Scott Hahn. Yeah, Scott Hahn's a good guy, though. I reached out to him. I never heard back. It's unfortunate, right? I'd love to do it. Alexander says the Kaiser's the best host. He cares for every one of us wolves in the wolf pack. Okay, totally, on Telegram. Sit through his craziness and see. Yeah, this dude probably eats papal encyclicals for breakfast. It's true. And if you're not on Telegram, again, make sure to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And thank you, by the way, for people saying hi to my wife. You know, I really appreciate it. It was awesome, actually. You know, the way that there have been instances recently where people have said things that are very kind, things about where we've met different people, and the first thing they brought up was my wife. You know, and she's like an unspoken hero, right? She's been at the forefront of so many things, and in my life, and as I said, I wouldn't be who I am without her. Okay. Oh, dude, River Run's in here. River Run, bro. I want to connect with you, by the way. So I'd like to connect with you after this, either tonight or tomorrow, because I'll be back on Telegram after the show. I'd like to connect with you so that we can coordinate a time where we can get together and do a show together. So I think that'd be a lot of fun on the channel. So it's long overdue, my man. Yeah, every Novus Ordo at the parish is at least okay. I plan some of them. Unicorn Parish. All the ones at town are at least fine. Unicorn Town. I hope there's a little sarcasm in that, because I hear this thing, unicorn, and I'm like, I've never seen so many unicorns in my life. In fact, you want to talk about a unicorn mass? Let's be real. It's an SSPX chapel or Sedevacantis chapel. And so, when people say unicorn, you know, and it's like they treat it so often as if referring it to that, it's an easy way to just disregard it. It's an easy way to say it doesn't say anything. It says an awful lot. What it says is that the Mass in and of itself is able to be done in such a way that it is remarkably reverent. It is remarkably robust. It is remarkably gracious. That's what it says. That's what it says. So yes, am I fortunate to be in one? Yes. I'm also in a town that has a lot of them. I hear that. They throw that to the side. Oh, yeah, well, you're in Grand Rapids. You know how many times I hear people say, well, you're in this city or you're in that city? I'm like, there's a lot of cities. But you know what each one of those unicorn places, you know what they have? They have people that sit there and they fight for it. They get involved in it. That's what they do. Yeah, unicorn diocese. And my diocese isn't even, look, my bishop, he's done things I wish he did not do, right? Even during the whole McCarrick thing. He was one of the guys that seconded the motion to say, well, we believe that the Pope's going to release all this stuff. At the time, I'm like, you didn't need to do that. You could believe that, but you didn't need to put your name on that, right? You didn't need to do that. At the same time, he's allowed an enormous amount of leeway. And part of that's because of the people. Part of that's because of the priests. But part of that, a great deal of that, in fact, almost all of it, almost all of it, is the fact that there are a tremendous amount of individuals who love the traditional Latin Mass who do not disparage the Novus Ordo. They do not disparage the bishop. That's what it is. And yeah, Brick says Grand Rapids is dope. Yeah, bro. And I live in the D.C. area and my parish is good, so I don't buy that argument. Yeah. I mean, you're in D.C., homie. You're in D.C. So, okay, let me see if I got this. Let me see if I've got this window capture. Where's it? What the blazes? Oh, okay, yeah. I'll go ahead and do this. Let's see. Properties, preview. Okay. Oh no. No, what is this? What is this nonsense? Oh, there we go. Okay. So, all right. Let me see here. So, first of all, let me go ahead and pull this up. So this would be the first one. Okay. So I want to go through, first of all, just to remind everybody that I was on the Mass of the Ages. Okay. I was on Mass of the Ages channel. It's an episode of PaleocratDiaries. It will be part of the full catalog of PaleocratDiaries. You can find that, of course, in the description below. But during the show, we were limited on time. And so we said, well, I wanted to focus on as much with Cameron as I possibly could. I wanted to be able to address what he said. Because we can do this, right? Talk about different comments and stuff after the program. So that's what I'm going to do. And as a reminder to people, if you're watching and you'd like to address me here, make sure to put the @ symbol, the meaning of Catholic, and you'll be able to address me. If somebody can do that in the comments to let people know, say this is a sample, this is what it looks like, because there are some people who are confused by that. It's literally an @ symbol. Just do that, okay? You know what that is. So, okay. John says regarding discipline, which the Pope indeed has plenitude of authority, ordinary, belonging to him without any further qualification. Yes, that's true. But disciplines as such are not infallible, unlike the tenets of the faith, and unlike the divine positive law. And in that regard, any pope can make error in that area. Possessing that prerogative does not mean that he can't commit any mistake in legislating a specific particular discipline. And that is quite evident in the history of the church. I agree. That's irrelevant to my point. My point is this, is that number one, okay, to even indicate that the Pope has the fullness of this authority, the fullness of it is itself quite a task. Okay, so John Alfred Reeves, it's quite a task amongst many of the people who are monocle men and cryptocetes, suspicionistas one and all. It really is, because they would like to say, well, he doesn't have authority on this, or he doesn't have authority on that. He can't tell me what to do. Yes, he can. And in fact, to deny as much on this score, straight up anathema. And someone says, well, wait a second. If you're saying that he has the authority to, and yet at the same time, you're saying that doesn't ensure that he's going to have the fullness of infallibility on certain disciplines, how do you balance that out? And I say, well, because, and we can go back over and over and over and over again to this. In fact, this is the core. This is at the core of my position. And that is Pope St. Gregory the Great and Pope Leo the 13th, okay? And we're going to, I'll cite them numerous times on this, okay? Let me go ahead and grab it. And that way we've got, let me see here, okay? Okay, so when talking about the, oh, I thought I had it in there. I do not, in fact, have it in there. That is a bummer. What is this? Jacob Strange. Okay, yeah. Let me see here. There we go. So when talking about these issues regarding what do we do with authority, because I'm treating it as a maximal thing, saying, oh no, he definitely has the fullness of it. And in fact, the reason he has the fullness of it is because of Vatican I. Okay, so you've got Vatican I, Session 4, Paragraph 3. And the way that plays out, okay, let me go ahead and I'll just read it so that everybody gets it. That there's no like, oh, what is he talking about? Let me be very, very, very clear. I will be abundantly clear. Here we go. So we've got, and it would be, what would it be? Session 4, paragraph, would it be paragraph 3, and then it'd be point 9 or something like that. So then, if anyone says that the Roman pontiff has merely an office of supervision and guidance, by the way, do you know how many trads believe in the night watchman idea of the papacy? Have you ever got that impression? It's a valid one. I mean, it's totally realistic. But but you sit there and you say, yeah, so they say, oh, he's just merely supervising. He's just making sure that everything is static. No, he's not. If anyone says that he has merely an office of supervision and guidance and not the full and supreme power of jurisdiction over the whole church, and this not only in matters of faith and morals, and by the way, jurisdiction over the whole church, talk to the SSPX about that. Talk to the SSPX about that, popping up chapels in dioceses all around the world. Not only in matters of faith and morals, so people say, yeah, it's true, in faith and morals, but also in those which concern the discipline and government of the church dispersed throughout the whole world, or if someone believes he has only the principal part, but not the absolute fullness. Okay, so people say, well, he has some functions, but not all. Anathema. Anathema. I'm going ahead of myself. Of this supreme power. Or that someone believes that this power of his is not ordinary and immediate, both over all and each of the churches and over all and each of the pastors and faithful. Let him be anathema. Let him be anathema. And so I sit there and I say, there is no question then. So yes, you have the fullness of it. Faith, morals, government discipline, that it's ordinary and immediate over all the churches, over all the faithful, over all the pastors in the world. So then the question is, well, what happens if a pope says something and we simply say, well, I'm not going to listen to that. I don't need to listen to that. Or I can say whatever I want. I can respond however I like, where they don't have a normative ethic that goes, yeah, well, I've got this idea, right? Or this general belief or this general restriction that says you can't do this or you must do that. And instead, I'm going to look situation by situation by situation, instance by instance by instance, and make my decision in the moment. Which, to be quite frank, is what most traditionalists do. They're reactionaries. Yeah. They're reactionaries. And so I kind of look at it, and I'm like, there's a serious problem here. Because, and why is there a serious problem here? I'll tell you why. All right, let me see here. Let me get back to the, there we go. Because we've got this, okay? And I'll start with this. I know I've said it many times before, but you've got the encyclical on Christian citizenship by Leo XIII. And in that encyclical, in fact, I'll put it up on the screen. It's kind of fancy anyway. It's kind of fun. It is. Let me go ahead and let me add a window capture of this. Okay. Let me go ahead and I'll download so that way you're able to see it anyway. All right, here we go. All right, and check the okay. So gonna have to line this up real quick. Lining this up. There we go. Look at this. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? So yeah, excuse me on this. Okay. So he's talking about what's the proper disposition and what's the proper order that should prevail in a Christian society. And a lot of traditionalists, to their merit, talk about the reintroduction, the reestablishment, the restoration of Christendom. You go, okay, well, what's the proper disposition? What's the proper order of that? They end up sounding, American through and through. They almost sound libertarian. Whence it is clear that in addition to the complete accordance, so above and beyond the complete accordance of our thoughts and our deeds, the faithful should follow the practical political wisdom of the ecclesial authority. Well, what is that? What is that? Everyone has to regulate his mode of conduct according to this constitution of the church. Oh, so that's neat. So, okay. So all of whatever we do, our conduct, right? The things that we're thinking about, the things we're speaking about, the things that we are doing, We have to regulate those. Well, that's duh, obviously. But according to what? No, the divine constitution of the visible church. Why? Because it's not in the power of any man to change it. Among the prelates, indeed, and people can say, well, it doesn't sound very deep. I've had people do it before. They say, oh, indeed, one or other there may be affording scope to criticism. That's way more than that. I'm like, well, part of that's technics, but we'll ignore that. Because it proves my point anyway. It doesn't matter. Among the prelates, indeed, one or other there may be affording scope to criticism. Okay. Can you imagine one or other prelate that is deserving of criticism? Can you imagine it? Say it out loud. Say it out loud. Or in your, let me take it back. Don't do it. Say it in your mind. Say it to yourself. But say it strongly, in your heart. Say it. I'm setting you up, by the way. Okay. So one or more that may be affording scope to criticism, either in regard to their personal conduct, what they do, or in reference to opinions by him entertained about points of doctrine. So can you imagine any prelate that you know in your own life or that you've read about online that has done something you don't like, right? Do you think is terribly bad? In fact, make it real bad. Find the worst ones. Find them. Find the ones that you think are worthy of death. Dead serious about it too, by the way. Whether it's points of doctrine, whether it's his actions, but no private person. Are you one? Before we even move on, are you one? Are you a private person? May arrogate to himself the office of judge, which Christ our Lord has bestowed on that one alone, whom he placed in charge of his lambs and his sheep. I know people will go, oh, well, I'm not judging him. I'm just telling the facts. Keep listening. Let everyone bear in mind the most wise teaching of Gregory the Great. Okay, so he's not just invoking himself. He's falling back on Pope St. Gregory the Great. Quote, subjects should be admonished, not rashly to judge their prelates, even if they chance to see them acting in a blameworthy manner. So even if you do, even if you see them doing what he's talked about before, that their personal conduct or the opinions held by him on points of doctrine, even if you happen to see them acting in a blameworthy manner. And why? Because, lest, justly reproving what is wrong. You're right to reprove that. You would be. It would definitely be worthy of reproof. No doubt about it. I mean, it's right in there. Personal conduct, opinions about points of doctrine that are bad, worthy of criticism. It's cooked in. Not rashly to judge the prelates. Even if they chance to see them acting in a blameworthy manner. Why? You could say, well, look, he did a scumbag thing. He did a terrible thing. He said something that was totally wicked, bad. Why can't I say something about this? What am I supposed to do? And why not? He answers you. It's called sagaciousness. Lest justly reproving what is wrong. So rightly criticizing them. The criticism in and of itself was totally legit. That they be led by pride into greater wrong. Yeah, so it seems like you can do something that is otherwise legitimate and still be wrong. And in fact, not just still be wrong, but maybe end up laying a trap for yourself. They are to be warned against the dangers of setting themselves up in audacious opposition to their superiors, whose shortcomings they may notice. Should, therefore, the superiors really have committed grievous sins, let me just emphasize grievous, right? Grievous sins, wicked bad, no good. And you know what? That, by the way, this whole thing is actually a summary. And it tones it down. It kind of waters it down a little. We'll talk about the main one here in a second. Their inferiors, penetrated with the fear of God, ought not to refuse them respectful submission. So, are you an inferior? Are you a private person? Are you a lay person? Parishioner? What are you? Are you a priest? Talking about your bishop? What are you? Are you talking about the Pope? What are you? even if they committed grievous sins, the inferiors, us, I gladly, in fact, I wear that on my sleeve. Their inferiors penetrated with the fear of God, so you better be afraid of God, ought not to refuse them respectful submission. That kind of sounds a little different than balkanize and persist. It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? You ought not to refuse them respectful submission. The actions of superiors should not be smitten by the sword of the word. That phrase right there, smitten by the sword of the word, is going to be important here in a moment, because time after time after time after time after time, there are people who act like I made it up. You think I'm going to use the word smitten? It's a pretty dope word, but do you think I would do that? Do you think I just pulled that out of thin air? It's re-emphasized, double emphasis. It's like having a bunch of underlines under something. The actions of superiors should not be smitten by the sword of the word, even when. Even when. Can you guess what he's going to say? Can you read it on the screen? Even when they are rightly judged to have deserved censure. Now, you'll notice at the end there, a fancy little thing. It is a footnote. Number 37. And where does that lead us? Where does that lead us? Oh, man, my face was like stuck in that. My face, I was probably over here, like all over the place. I apologize. I wasn't looking at the screen. What a ridiculous thing. What a ridiculous thing. So let's go ahead and look at it. Let's go ahead and look at it. Because this is important for the rest of the discussion. For the rest of the discussion, because you're going to see over and over and over, what you're going to see is that people want it, what they want. Okay, let me make this thing small. It's driving me nuts. This is seriously driving me bonker, Tom. Okay, let me see. There we go. Better. Maybe you can't read it now. I'm going to pull a Taylor Marshall and like have it like up in weird funky corners and stuff. There we go. So it's important because basically what ends up happening is this. It's always kind of tossed to the wind under the idea that these popes wouldn't know. I can only imagine what the popes would have said regarding the crisis. They're not reading it. They're not reading it. And they say, well, yeah, they never said anything about what we should and shouldn't do. I feel like it's a real blind spot for the Lord. I mean, God knows the future. And there's like talk of crises that will come up in history and some of them that are apocalyptic. I wish the Lord would have like given us some kind of guidance. I guess we're just stuck to our monocles. That's what it comes out like. But he quotes this other thing. He ends up quoting it. And what is it? Let's find out. Let's find out. Okay. Go ahead and do two of them here. Well, here you go. There we are. So, can I just switch it there? No. Okay, so that encyclical takes us here. Okay? Do you see that on the screen? What does it look like on the screen? No, it does not. We're going to show up right here. Let's see, preview. And there we go. It takes us here. How subjects and prelates are to be admonished. So right out of the get-go. Right out of the get-go, Admonition 5, St. Gregory the Great, right? In his letter is his letter about how to properly pastor and shepherd the church and how the sheep must respond to the bishops. This is not, by the way, asking your permission. It's a very modern secular thing for individuals to believe that they just have the right to make it up as, on the fly, pulling it out of their rear end. Because that is what's going on here. It is what's going on. But what does the church have to say about it? Oh, the church says an awful lot. Here's one of those things. Here's one of those things. Differently to be admonished are subjects and prelates. Stop. Differently. So many conversations, like ones in the comment section, talked about St. Athanasius? Well, how do you explain St. Athanasius? How do you explain St. Peter coming and confronting or St. Paul confronting St. Peter to his face? Because what would that mean for you? Well, it means I can do that. Well, for one, you don't even know what Athanasius did. Barely at all. One of the things he did was tell the people to submit. And he promised them it wouldn't take long. He had faith, by the way, and obedience. But more than that, he's a bishop. He's a bishop. And the constitution of the divine constitution of the visible church matters. Hierarchy matters. Why are you leveling the church like it's some kind of equalitarian scheme? That's weird. So does it surprise you that prelates and subjects, right, are to be admonished differently? And he goes through, he says, look, the bishops, they shouldn't be subjecting us by, crushing us and stuff like that. And that they shouldn't be prideful, to be elated by their place. He says that people like us, that we should fail not to fulfill what is commanded of us. Don't fail on that, by the way. And that's all we're really talking about. We're not even talking about, in fact, this entire conversation only makes sense in the context of a real problematic situation. As for the bishops, that they command not more to be fulfilled than is just. The former, people like us, that we submit humbly. The bishops, that they preside temperately. For this, which may be understood also figuratively, it is said to the former, to folks like us, children, obey your parents in the Lord. But to the latter, to the bishops, to the prelate, it is enjoined, and you, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath. Well, the question comes up, but they already did that. They already did that, so I'm able to do whatever I want. Phony baloney sauce. Number one, keep reading. Number two, that's a really cruddy ethic. Well, that person up there was violating the law. Why can't I do that? What a garbage, what a poo-poo trash ethical system that is. It's no good. Let the former, right, people like us, learn how to order their inward thoughts before the eyes of the hidden judge. He fleshes this out in a second. The bishops, prelates, how also to those that are committed to them to afford outward examples of good living. For prelates ought to know, and this is the doozy, if they ever perpetrate what is wrong, they are worthy of as many deaths as they transmit examples of perdition to their subjects. They are straight up, they are worthy of death. They are worthy of not just one. Well, if they do one, okay. As many examples of perdition that they've done, they are worthy, in fact, of death. That is not minimizing the situation. In fact, it's maximizing it. What more are you going to do? Death penalty. What more are you going to do? Maximizing it. It's not denying or closing your ears and closing your eyes. No, ain't doing it. Wherefore it's necessary that they guard themselves so much the more cautiously from sin, as by the bad things they do, they die not alone, but are guilty of the souls of others, which by their bad examples they've destroyed. Wherefore the former are to be admonished, lest they should be strictly published, if merely on their own conduct they should be unable to stand acquitted. Now, let me see if I can open this thing up. Here we go. Let me get back to the comments, because the next part's going to be unpacking this like crazy. Oh, you know what? We're just gonna do it right now. We're just gonna do it right now. That way we don't have to go back to it. That way it's just over. You just know where I'm coming from right out of the gate. There's no more hiding, no more nothing. You just say, oh no, this is what he's saying. And then, in fact, we're going to find out how many questions are answered just by doing this. Just by, if they were to actually read, Leo, and Gregory, how many questions, how many instances would they never again say, well, if only the popes would have thought about that? It's over, by the way. It's over. Yeah. Let me pop this bugger open. Oh, I accidentally. Okay, there it is. Here we go. All right, let me open this bugger up a little bit more. Okay, so subjects again are to be admonished that they judge not rashly the lives of their superiors. So here we are, back to what I said was the summary. Do you see all that in there, all that red? Yeah, that's for you. It really is. It's for you. I contend that it's some of the most exhaustive teaching from a pope on the way that we ordinarily ought to conduct ourselves and how we must align ourselves in our hearts and in our mind and in our words, our actions. When we see a prelate acting badly or advancing a particular belief that we think is worthy of censure. Subjects, like me and you, are to be admonished that they judge not rashly the lives of their superiors, if perchance they see them act blamably in anything, lest, whence they rightly find fault with evil. So not just a wrong, not just a bummer, oops, that's a boo-boo. No, straight up evil. They thence be sunk by the impulse of elation to lower depths. So it's the same idea. If we see something straight up evil, what are you supposed to do? They are to be admonished that when they consider the fault of their superiors, okay, have you considered the fault of your superiors? In fact, Mass of the Ages was part 2 is essentially a display, right? a display the entire time, a documentation of what they believe to be the faults of superiors. They are to be admonished that when they consider the faults of their superiors, they grow not too bold against them. But if any of their deeds are exceedingly bad, okay, so there's the but. There's the big but. We see it. You see it right there? The big, huge, honking but. If any of their deeds are exceedingly bad, so judge of them within themselves. What? Oh, how dare you? Within myself? Judge them within myself? What? But what they did was bad. We've already explained that. Whence they rightly find fault with evil. It's already done. It's cooked in. You do not have an escape hatch there. You don't. If any of their deeds are exceedingly bad, exceedingly, judge them within yourself. That, constrained by the fear of God. Why do they keep using that phrase? Why would it be that we have to be fearful of God? What's that all about? They still refuse not to bear the yoke of reverence under them. Because they're afraid of God. Because they're afraid of God, they do not refuse to bear the yoke of reverence. Not just obedience, we're talking reverence, the thing that would motivate that obedience under them. I didn't talk about Alcuin Reed during the dialogue with Cameron. Right there. The yoke of reverence. For what is signified by Saul. Okay? And he's talking about, by the way, suffered under persecution. I'll read it. Which thing we shall show the better if we bring forward. So he's like, we're going to show this. We're going to explain it. What David did, right, in 1 Samuel 24. For when Saul, the persecutor, doing a lot of trads, right? A lot of people were angry. I'm using the description of Cameron. He said there's a lot of anger. It's an angry film. When Saul, the persecutor, had entered into a cave to ease himself, David, who had so long suffered under his persecution, he was straight up persecuted. He had to run for his life. He had to hide out. Was within it with his men. And when his men incited him to smite Saul, hey, go get him. You can get him. He's wide open. He cut them short by replying that he ought not to put forth his hand against the Lord's anointed. And yet he rose unperceived, so he wasn't seen by anybody. And he goes out and he cut off the border of Saul's robe. Why? Why did he do that? And how did he feel? Was he proud? Was he happy? Did he go and he shouted from the rooftops on Twitter? On YouTube? For what is signified by Saul? Oh, here, bad rulers. Okay. And what about David? Good subjects. So now we're back to, inferiors and superiors. Saul's easing himself then means rulers extending the wickedness conceived in their hearts to works of woeful stench. Woeful stench. Woeful stench, huh? Sounds pretty bad. Does that sound like something kind of, it doesn't sound too bad. Woeful stench? Oh, no. It's woeful stench. It's super wicked bad. It's nasty gross. It's evil. It's deserving of death. And now they've got that in their hearts already. And now they're fleshing out those works. And they're showing the noisome thoughts within them by carrying them out into deeds. And yet, David was afraid to strike because the pious minds of subjects. So he was afraid. He wasn't going to strike Saul. He wasn't going to lash out at Saul that way. Why? Because he was pious. Because he was pious. And he was a subject. And he feared God. Withholding themselves from the whole plague of backbiting. That doesn't sound good for YouTube comment sections, any social media platform for that matter. You find a congregation of people who are very unhappy with Vatican II or the Novus Ordo or anything like that. The Vatican, the Pope, doesn't matter. You go in there, it's a plague of it. They smite the life of their superiors. But we should not, in fact, smite the life of our superiors with no sword of the tongue. People, by the way, who made fun of that phrase in that chat, they were mocking King David. They were mocking Pope Leo XIII. They were mocking St. Gregory the Great. And ultimately, mocking God. Mocking God. Why is that? Even when they blame them for imperfection, by the way. Even when they blame. So they're right. And by the way, the imperfection, what is that? Well, it's the stuff he described above. Evils. Wicked bad things deserving of death. And when, through infirmity, they can scarce refrain from speaking. So maybe it's so bad. It's so bad, you're like, I can't stop it. I gotta do this. I simply can't hold back. I can't be quiet anymore. It's so wicked bad, I've got to say something. Okay, let's find out. Is it justified? Does Pope St. Gregory the Great pat you on the back and go, look, I congratulate you. You're like a Quaker. You kept your mouth shut for a long time until the movement inside of you was just so overwhelming, you lashed out and you slayed a superior with the sword of your tongue. Good for you. No. Garbage. Even if you can't refrain from speaking, however humbly, of some extreme and obvious evil in the superiors. It's an extreme evil. It is obvious he's not letting any escape hatch. Zero. You know what just went out the door? If they only understood the crisis. If they only understood modernism. I didn't really get it. That escape hatch is gone. It's done. That they cut, as it were, silently, the border of their robe. Because, to wit, Because when, even though harmlessly and secretly, so even if you did this silently, harmlessly, secretly, within yourself, as he's described thus far, for even the slightest defamation of speech, right? It says right here that they derogate. So even if it's harmlessly, even if it's secretly, okay, they derogate the dignity of superiors. They disfigure, as it were, the garments of the king who is set over them. Yet still they return to themselves. So you go and you do that, you've disfigured it. You've disfigured the garment of a king, a prelate, who's been set over you. That's hinting at something coming. So what do? They return to themselves and blame themselves most vehemently. When is the last time you have seen people who are constantly bashing the church and bashing the bishops? When have you seen them bashing themselves and blaming themselves more vehemently than they do their superiors? Can you count it on one hand? I can. Maybe they keep that to themselves. For even the slightest defamation. Hence, it is also written in that place, quote, afterward, David's heart smote him because he had cut off the border of Saul's robe. Does that seem like a really bad thing? To the modern mind, to the modernitrads, does that sound that bad, to be honest? I mean, he didn't kill him. He didn't go out and bash him. He just cut the corner of his robe off. His heart was smote. For indeed, the deeds of superiors are not to be smitten by the sword of the mouth. There we are again. It's what, the third time? Even when they are rightly judged to be worthy of blame. But, there's another big but. People say, look, I knew it was coming, Jeremiah. I knew it was coming. It couldn't go like this forever because this is real bad. I've never heard anything like this. That's a lot different than what I hear from Dr. Peter Kay. But if ever, even in the least, the tongue slips into censure of them, the heart must needs be depressed by the affliction of what? So you need to be depressed, your heart? The slightest thing? The slightest censure in your heart of people when you talk and stuff? You have to somehow be depressed? By what? Oh, the affliction of penitence. Penitence, the affliction of it. To the end. What's the reason for that? Why? What's the deal with this? Why? That again it may return to itself, and when it has offended against the power set over it, that it may dread the judgment against itself. That even if you, in the smallest thing, you go and you do this, that you would be terrified of God. You'd be terrified of his judgment against itself, of him by whom it was set over it. So God. You have to be afraid of God. Whence also. For when we offend against those who are set over us, we go against the ordinance of him who set them over us. Whence also Moses, when he become aware that the people complained against himself, and Aaron said, quote, for what are we? Not against us are your murmurings, but against the Lord. That's the context. I'm dead serious. That's the context of it. How often have you heard any modernitrad talk that way? How often? How often have you seen them blame themselves more? How often have you seen them where I've seen, in fairness, I've seen some that say, look, I really came against the Pope. I need to think this through. I need to go to confession. Typically, it was something so brazen, the smallest thing. And not just the Pope, but your superiors. You know, a lot of the people that don't behave this way call themselves monarchists. They get upset when I say they're LARPing. It's because this sort of thing comes out of a culture where hierarchy was robust. These moderns betray themselves by their words, betray themselves by their actions. Let me see. I just had this up here. How did I do that? I just had it. Where in the world? Okay. Here we go. Here we go. So. All right, moving forward, we're going to just talk about the comments now, okay? We're just going to talk about those things that people said, that they were wondering about. This one here, what an anti-white thing to say, Jeremiah, right? Shame on you, Home Slice. Shame on you. And it had to do with my bringing up the terribly unfortunate fact that the TLM community, by and large, tends to have certain kind of political views, certain kind of economic views, and they tend to be very Anglo-American and French, right? The Catholicity of this is different, and they have to make a pitch for that. And you'll see people, right? It says the white people need non-whites in church for them to be moral. That's weird. Implying that white people are somehow morally deficient? For one, I never even implied that. There's no reason to say that because there aren't many people, black people, inside of a lot of these American traditional Latin Mass communities, doesn't mean that the people in those communities are morally deficient. I don't know where that even comes from. Or that white people need non-whites in church with them to be moral. I didn't say that either. The idea that is enough, right? That's really what I'm getting at. No, if you don't have a certain number of black people, what do you think I am, a guy for a quota? That's nonsense. Then you're anti-white. White people are not demographically suffering from contraception and abortion because non-whites are not in church attendance with them. That has nothing to do with it either. I was talking about how, demographically speaking, there's data out there that talks about the future mega shifts within the church, the way that the West has suffered from a great apostasy. There's a tremendous amount of apostasy going on in the West. It's going on in other countries too, but you can see in other countries a rise in the increase of weekly attendance that rivals and goes even above and beyond where we are. The number of priests, the number of religious. I'm just simply saying that the face of Catholicism may not be as white as you want to think it is. And it says something if you're in a town, right? If you're part of a group and you don't have, if it's of disinterest, if someone said, well, it's just simply that, people, they don't live nearby. There's not many black people nearby. That's one thing. I get that. But I don't know if this is the comment or was another one that was talking about how most of these chapels and stuff, most of these parishes that do it, a significant number of them are in inner cities. I say that says something then. That says something. But the idea that I'm anti-white, if people would like, they can go back. There's a video there's a podcast. You can hear me being interviewed by David Smalley of Dogma Debate. He's an atheist guy. SJW kind of a little bit. I don't want to say SJW, but he's definitely a lefty. And came at me, accused me of separatism, accused me of supremacy. We had a big long debate about it. Why would he do that? That's weird. That's weird. I had a conversation about this exact issue on Spexo's show with Spexo and Pinesap. It's an excellent show, by the way. Proud of those guys. He even talked about Nick Fuentes and Groypers. So if you want to know what my position is, there's no need to invoke, to reach deep down inside that Cracker Jacks box to get a crystal ball. Why don't you just ask about it? So saying, you're anti-white. The anti-white narrative pushes anti-whiteism against white people to hate themselves. Yes, I've said that repeatedly. Irrelevant. And to even say such an anti-white asinine thing as try harder shows you don't actually care that white people are suffering from immorality. What? Why don't you try harder to stop being so anti-white? What? Why don't I try harder? You should see my portfolio. I've been working hard for a long time. In fact, I was talking about critical race theory on radio and TV, I think before even Andrew Breitbart. Obviously, he's a bazillion times bigger, but the mere fact is I was doing that before he was. Haven't changed my position on that either. In fact, I'm single-handedly the reason. I was the president of Young Americans for Freedom at Olivet College. Okay, I founded the group. I was the president of it. Okay, while we did that, there was a healing racism seminar, and that seminar required people. First of all, they came into the room and they handed people these pieces of paper with the white privilege checklist on it, and of course, only handed it to white students in the class, or who they thought were. Okay, maybe they were passing as white, but they gave it to them. And we had to fill those buggers out. And then afterwards, there was a big old surprise. Guess what? It wasn't on the list for your curriculum for the year. It wasn't on the syllabus. But we got a bunch of money from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. It's a big New World Orderite scheme, a big wicked bad thing. And what do? They donate tons of money, and they provide this curriculum. They provide these books and lessons, facilitators. And you have to sit in a circle, a spirit circle. And you're not allowed, if you're a student, you are not allowed to rebut the facilitator or what anybody else says. Instead, you need to listen and absorb. That's a cult. And if you did rebut the facilitator, guess what? Your butt was out the door. And your butt was in the hot seat because you would get an F on what would be the equivalent of a midterm grade. Your boys stood up against it. And that year I was one of two guys who did not need to take the class. Instead, I lined my radio show, which was right about, 50 feet from the room that this seminar was in. And I set it up so that my show was airing at the same time. And anytime people would come out of there getting kicked out, I'd have them come in and talk about it. That seminar was supposed to last for a long time. Got a lot of money. Lasted one semester. I led the charge on that. So for you to sit there, and I used to do Holy Faith Media. I was on 5 days a week. 5 days a week talking about this stuff. So cut it out. Cut it out. Let's see. The next one here is by Elo. Yeah, hold on. By Elo. Elo Paleocrat. Wait, what's up with the scare quotes, man? What's up with that? There's no need for scare quotes. That's who I am. In fact, I'm the one and only, dude. I created the word. Paleocrat is not a champion of the faith. That's a champion of it. Who says I'm a champion, man? I'm just a guy trying to do my best for Johnny Q and Sally Sue. Get a hold of yourself. He's confused by the post-conciliar debacle, which is not an unnatural reaction. Jeremiah's confused. He doesn't understand it. This cat here, we got to pull this out. Elo has straight up got his monocle going. Okay, he's got his monocle. Let's see. It is confusing for all of us. Cameron O'Hearn, on the other hand, is a champion of the faith, creating a glorious film that will bring countless souls to Christ. My contention, which he admitted, is that it's at least possible that it is creating cryptosedes instead of acanthus as well. And we have a difference over maybe lines of what would amount to schism. Let's see. We will take our stand for Christ the King, while those who compromise will do nothing. They live by the letter of law and not the spirit. They are the Pharisees, in fact, of our time. Really? You want to go there? You want to go there, dude? Let me see if I can transform this a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, apparently one of the things I happen to be is a Pharisee. I happen to be a Pharisee, guys. And let me take this thing off of here. I'll scooch it over. Well, that way we've got at least a little bit of room. At least a little bit. So I move it up here. I can move it wherever I want, guys. I can move it wherever I want. So yeah, so Elo is insistent that your boy is in fact a Pharisee. Okay, so it's one of those things. I say, look, does the letter of the law? Yeah, I don't like it up there. Does the letter of the law matter? Yes. Yes. It definitely matters. That's why they write stuff. Otherwise, what are you? You know, you're like some kind of weird mystic. You're like, oh no, just the spirit. That's all that matters. Jesus fulfilled the law. Not one jot or tittle was there to be abolished. Why? What a weird thing. He cared about the letter, not the spirit. Jesus just didn't get it. Come on, man. I know you're better than this. I know you can do this. And I'm not meaning to be rude about that. I'm sincere. I'm thinking, you know, sometimes if people say things out loud, like sometimes people will say stuff where it's just like really like rude and they don't know anything about it, but they make it up. That's what I mean when I say like magic crystal ball stuff. Not that they're really playing with a magic crystal ball, but that they're being presumptuous. That they are just assuming this and believing that they have this magical insight. I say the same thing about people who say you only need to know about the spirit of the law. Why make an either or out of an otherwise good both and? Makes no sense to me. A friend of mine who left the SSPX was discussing the liturgy with me in Vatican II. This is Marco. Mostly about Dignitatis Humanae and religious liberty. When I brought up, paraphrased, the distinction between Pius XI and Pius VI, fair warning, it's at least possible that we've got ourselves a hermeneutic of suspicion, and we've got ourselves a one of discontinuity. One of discontinuity. By the way, you either have to come up with how the church can be, that there can be discontinuity and yet the church be immutable and indefectible, or else you have to come up with an idea as to how you can explain why you can believe that the church is defectible or mutable. Respectively saying that Catholicism must be taught as the one religion in the state, and that the state cannot coerce, he couldn't see the difference. Also, and more gravely, he would doubt Vatican I to defend his views on Vatican II issues, saying that Vatican I is frankly ultramontanist. There's still work to do, boys. There's still work to do. One of those things that you could do is say, inform him he can come over here. We do not see a discontinuity between the two. I'm not going to throw Vatican I under the bus. That's outrageous. That's what heretics and schismatics would do. So I definitely strongly advise against that, especially if it's the result of somebody, you know, throwing on that monocle and looking at the scrolls for themselves. I see right here, if you look, I see a major contradiction in the church. What? Send him over here. We'll take care of him. We'll take care of them. Because either way, you're throwing Vatican II. I mean, don't people see that they're the flip side? The Jekyll and Hyde. Don't they see that? Man, Paleocrat's just pushing it. This is Irod Jetson. I live in Chile, man, South America. I know where that is. And I know the regular masses and the type of parish life you have in a regular environment in most Latin American countries. You'd cry and bite your tongue. You'd want to scream your lungs out at the ways in which our Lord is treated regularly, ordinarily. Let me tell you, I understand that. I've been in places like that. Dude, America's pretty bad. We've got some weirdness going on here. Okay? This is not even a question. And yet, at the same time, I like that you said that you would want to scream, scream as loud as you can at the top of your lungs. I'm presuming that you're abiding by what Pope St. Gregory the Great talked about keeping the yapper shut, or doing so discreetly, or doing so within your head. And then after that, in fact, feeling the affliction of penitence in your heart. You just don't know what you're talking about. What? You're simply pushing your view to the limit, and it breaks apart when that limited view encounters reality. Why is that? Because I don't understand how wicked bad things are. That's what you said. I just got done quoting something that talked about tremendous evil, that people would be worthy of as many deaths for the kind of wicked sins that they did. You can't outdo me when I'm saying that we're talking about things that would be worthy of a whole bunch of deaths. That's like saying it would warrant, suffocating somebody, choking them out, gouging out their eyes, right, until they die from blood loss, right? Paper cutting them to death, coming up with as many, especially these guys that are doing a bazillion sins. You're going to run out of stuff. I mean, you got to be creative. Using deer antlers. Like, what the heck? He'd be worthy of it. He'd be worthy of it. Drown him. Hang him. Leave him out to freeze in the cold. Burn him alive. Slay him with the sword. All these different things. He'd be worthy of as many deaths to come back and die. To come back and die. All that pain. All that sorrow. Deserving. You can't outdo that. But the Eucharistic ministers. You can't outdo that. You don't understand the argument. I understand situations like yours. I understand. I was a set of a contest, by the way. I'm not meaning to be rude. And I hope you're at least appreciating and understanding this shtick a little bit. I'm not trying to be rude to anybody. We disagree, big time. Okay? But the idea, I was a set of a contest. I left because I watched all the Diamond Brothers movies. If you don't think that I have seen some weird nonsense, then you don't know me. I used to make videos about it on YouTube years ago. The TLM is one of the main reasons I'm still Catholic. I know people like that. The Holy Father's actions have been super hurtful, not only to me, but to many. On the ground level, all the people who attend the TLM I've come across aren't rad trads. By the way, just so people know, I hate when people talk this way. All the people I've ever met, whoop-de-doo, good for you. So if I meet all the trads, if someone said, all the trads that I've met are this way, and you say, well, all the trads I've met are the opposite, does that mean that you're entirely right? Or does it mean that his experience is different than your experience? So what does that mean other than I personally, in my own little universe here, in my experience, have experienced who I personally believe are great people? Well, yeah, I know, because you're a traditionalist. You probably don't even think that you're a rad trad, Fuber. They're not sedes or anything the like. Well, if you go to a parish, then yeah, I think it's almost a safe bet. We simply want to worship like our fathers worshiped. And we want reverence in our liturgy. Okay, totally. That doesn't justify anything else beyond that. Why is the Holy Father so concerned about suppressing the TLM? That's because, and this is my position. You guys might disagree with me on it. You brought it on yourselves. You betrayed Benedict. You betrayed him. Maybe not you personally, but traditionalists on the whole. And people can say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, Benedict, when he did the motu proprio, there were these bishops that came along, right? And that they were concerned. And he talks about it. He says that they came to me and they were really worried that if this motu proprio happened, that you would have this increase in kind of a TLM exclusivism. They would begin just totally dogging the Novus Ordo. They'd begin to dog the Vatican II. You would see this crazy resistance thing rising up. And what did he say? He said, I don't think that this warrants that suspicion. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that their fear is not warranted. You tell me. We're talking Mass of the Ages. These conversations are exactly that. This is exactly what those bishops were worried about. And you know what the answer I hear all the time is? Yeah, well, you know what? Because it's true. Yes, then it's true what I'm saying about you. It's true what I'm saying about the people who threw Benedict under the bus, and then they sit there and they say, well, I'm really surprised. How dare the Pope do this? How dare he? Now, in fairness, he says, and it's again, generally, I don't know Fuber personally. I'm not meaning to dog. He might be a cool guy. He's got a cool transformer symbol. I'm down with that. I must admit that in my weakness, it's very hard to stay charitable in relation to the Holy Father's intentions. It makes it easier if you allow to recognize, number one, that you should not be talking out loud bashing the Pope. That's the first thing. Bashing the magisterium. You really should not be doing that. In fact, you've been admonished by popes not to. And that if you do, it should be maybe even within yourself, that you just have a concern, that you're worried about it. That doesn't mean you can't ever say a word, but it does mean that if and when you do, even when you're humble, we've already talked about it, even when you're humble about it, that there should be an affliction inside of you, and you should be afflicted by penitence, fearing God. So if you're not afraid of God when you do that, and I mean every time, not like, well, I felt fear of God before. Every time we do that, I think we'd do it a lot less. We'd be a lot more careful. I mean, he wouldn't dare impose these kind of restrictions on any of the Eastern rites. Don't you understand why he wouldn't? Right? Because there's a sense, yes, on the one hand, he is definitely the vicar. He's got universal jurisdiction. There's also a role that he plays as the see for the West, the Bishop of the West. In fact, the Bishop of Rome proper. It's a different thing. And that's a respectful thing, in fact. He would have a more immediate control. Of course, he'd have absolute control over all these things, right? He would be the final court in this. At the same time, this is his particular side of the map. It's more immediately connected with him, not just at the level of the vicar with global jurisdiction, okay, global authority in that sense, but more intimately even than that. And deep down inside, I think you know that. So he's doing with his, rather than doing with what ultimately maybe, but is still the descendant of a different patriarch, a different apostle that went to a different place. And they also have their own, they've got their own changes that have gone on. They've got their own way of doing things, including, by the way, the vernacular. You say it seems cruel. And that you're really saddened by that. I don't know how we could say that it's cruel. It's the liturgy of the West. The popes have done it successively for quite a while, in fact. We've had many saints, in fact, martyrs, who've died in love with that Mass. I came to the Mass as a Protestant. I was a Protestant. I'd been debating Catholics for a long time. And the people who were most influential in helping me come to the Catholic Church were themselves FSSP. Okay? But what finally convinced me, I went to a Christmas Eve Mass at a Novus Ordo church. And that church was definitely not the Unicorn Church. I was blown away. The beauty, the grandeur, the glory of it all. I absolutely loved it. And I would have never in a million years thought it was cruel. In fact, the first day I did that on a Christmas Eve, I was like, 2006 or something? I told my wife a couple weeks later, I said, I am going to become Catholic. It's over. Done. And I said, I don't care if I have to crawl on my hands and knees to Mass. I can't say that's cruel. I would have died for it. I still would. Others have. Maggie says, it's very confusing as Benedict XVI categorically said all priests have the unassailable right to celebrate the traditional Latin Mass according to his mode proprio. And it can't be abrogated. It's not abrogated now. It's not abrogated now. And you sit there and you say, look, people act, isn't it weird how people, look, Maggie's probably really nice, right? But why is it that so many trads, when they talk about economics, they say there's no such thing as a free lunch. And yet when it comes to stuff like this, they totally believe in free lunches. Totally. Oh, I can do whatever I want. I can slay the superiors with the sword of my word. I can bash an ecumenical council. I can totally disregard various encyclicals. I can pit the church against itself. I can insinuate or declare that there's heresy inside of Vatican II or heresy inside of all these encyclicals all over the place. Bashing the Pope left and right. In fact, it's part of my brand. And how dare you come at me? And you don't think that a Pope has the right to legislate against holy traditions of the Church? Clearly stated time and again throughout the ages. In fact, they did. What are you going to do? Right? And that's you have an assumption. And by the way, this is it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Not, I don't think intentionally, but I want you to think, when you think of the negative charism of infallibility, do you know what that is? For real. Not just that you know the words, we know that, but what that means. What does it mean that men can, the machinations of their heart, but that God is the one who orders their steps? What does that mean? What does it mean that our Lord, when he promises to lead us into all truth and that he'll be with us until the end of the world? What does it mean when he says that the church is the pillar and foundation, or that he says if you have a problem with your brother, you need to go to the church, and if you don't listen to the church, that you're a heathen? It doesn't say unless you have a mega dope argument. What does that mean? Do you really believe that is what's going on here? Do you really believe that the Lord is so aloof? And St. Francis de Sales, he flat out says it. He says that if people believe that sort of thing, then either Christ doesn't care, right? That he guided you to the church and told you if you disobeyed, you're a heathen. That he didn't care, that he sent you to a place where heresy might abound and contradicting tradition and leading you astray and being against your faith and maybe dragging you to the pits of hell. He either didn't care at all, or he was malicious, or he didn't have the foresight or the power. He either didn't care, he wanted to lie to you and to get you to go there and to obey, with the fear of being a heathen if you didn't, or he didn't foresee it, and or he did not have the power to stop it. Pick your poison. According to Jeremiah's logic, Sky Pilot, I love this. St. Athanasius should have shut up and stayed in his cave. He told the people to. He told the people to. Yeah, and again, remember back to Gregory that superiors and inferiors, subjects and prelates are to be admonished differently. It's a weird leveling here, isn't it? Sky Pilot. He's like zooming up. He's got wings. He's like, I'm making it up to a pay grade above where I really am. Because I saw examples of prelates do this. Therefore, I can. No. That's very fake. It is. It's super duper fake. Oh, by the way, I didn't... Wow. I don't know how long this is going to go, by the way. I just realized the comment section. Look at this. Wow. There's a lot of this. And again, just as a reminder, if you would like to connect with me, you're welcome to debate each other. You can do that all day long. I love that you're here. Share it, by the way. I think this is a fun ride. But the idea, and what did St. Athanasius say to the subjects? What was it, his fourth exile? What was it? What did he say? What were they doing? Oh, they were clamoring about. They were going against, we need to overturn this. We need to change this. Rah! And they're all flipping out. And what did he say? Submit. Submit. It won't be long. He couldn't promise that, by the way. It's not some weird genie or something. He had faith that that would be the case. And you'd have people, how long is it going to be? You told us it wouldn't be so long. How long is this going to be? The truth is, it didn't matter. It wasn't their job. They're not in control of time. Their job was exactly as St. Athanasius said, submit. Time and time again, you'll see this. That and in the rare instances where you have people lower down who do that, typically they endure a time where they are punished and they submit to the punishment. They subject themselves. Or they refrain from setting up rival altars and things like that. Obviously. Well, obviously until maybe, the 1980s. No real Catholic disputes the Pope's authority. But Jeremiah's position is closer to Ultramontanism. Is it closer to Vatican I, and do you associate Vatican I with Ultramontanism? Answer me that. Riddle me that there, Sky Pilot. He seems to say that any exercise of legitimate authority is itself infallible. No, I did not. But it is authority, and it's valid authority. It is, we do not give it in part, that's anathema, but the fullness of it, over every church. We quoted in the beginning. You can go back and check it out yourself. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. That somehow will serve the good of the church, even if that flies in the face of the sensus fidelium and right reason. Oh, the sensus fidelium. Look, totally true. But in the scheme of things, let me ask you, sensus fidelium, you want to know what that says right now if you want to play that game? That you're wrong. The Novus Ordo has been accepted by the overwhelming majority of Catholics around the world. Pope Francis, overwhelming majority of Catholics around the world. Vatican II, the overwhelming majority of Catholics around the world. Your position is a subset of a subset of a subset. The only way you can fix that is if you embrace remnant theology and the invisible church ecclesiology. And, which, by the way, to do that, you have to have a position, right? A thesis regarding the defectibility and mutability of the church. Good luck with that. And right reason. Again, here we go, guys. Check it out. Monaco. Why? It's a different order of knowledge. You have to be able to bolster that, but at the same time, it does not subject itself to it. And why is that? Because it's divine. Because it's divine, man. You're looking at the source of it, as well as the keeper of it. The keeper of the keys? I don't trust that keeper of the keys. Maybe God had a bad idea. It'd be better if everybody go to Sky Pilot. Everybody. Go to Sky Pilot. This dude knows. He's figured it out. You can't fall back on that, by the way. You can't. To say, oh, the sensus fidelium. And you say, well, dude, have you done a poll or something? And it starts to sound like when we get in these discussions, and that's what it's about. And they say, I know the overwhelming majority. I know the majority of theologians, the majority of priests, the majority of bishops, successive popes, an ecumenical council, a liturgy and rites of the sacraments and martyrs and everything else. I know. But the truth is, me and my guys, we got this really figured out. We got a mega dope argument, man. Just hear us out. Unless you just want to say that the overwhelming majority are just raging heretics and blasphemers. I mean, if you want to go there, you say, well, we're talking about the Pope, though. We're talking about an ecumenical council. People can say, well, the Arian crisis. And I go, yes. How the Pope and the ecumenical council. Wow. What a weird thing how that turns out, isn't it? Isn't that weird? It's almost like God protects those things. It's almost like that negative charism actually matters. It's almost like it works. Almost like God not only cares, not only did he have the foresight, but he had the power. Don't you love God, by the way? Pat, if the man behind the curtain was a Freemason, what? People should look up information about that. It's one of those things. Look, Bugnini, not a fan. At the same time, you got to look up where that particular claim comes from. There's an excellent website, in fact. You should look it up. And since throughout history, the real church has been against it, automatic excommunication still is. Then how could a mass created by one? You don't understand how Freemasonry works, dude. Do you know how many things, by the way, this is a real question. Do you know how many decisions happen inside of a tradition, inside of decisions made by the church, where you may have had somebody connected with the Illuminati that was a guilty party in working on that, but it was still promulgated by a saint? Do you know how many? Of course not, because that's a true secret society. That's not just a society with secrets. It's a secret society. How would you know? And we don't sit there, again, these are the guys that say, I need to know that to trust if the negative charism, I need to be able to trust the church documents. I cannot believe these truths and all the other truths that the Catholic Church teaches unless I get out my freaking monocle and begin looking at all the scrolls and I go to all the people I like online and I come up with an idea. I need to be able to see behind the curtain. You know how many curtains you haven't seen behind in history? You know how many councils, how many bulls, how many encyclicals you have no knowledge at all. And yet, for the argument you've got to work is that was the real church. Why do you think you have more reason to trust the stability and authenticity and validity of those things that you have less information about? Man. And look, Pat, I ain't mad at you. I get riled up. But this argument is poo-poo trash. It's bad. Then how could a mass created by the one who's caused upheaval and loss of faith and reverence and so on? You are mistaken on cause and correlation. I have an entire series on it, so I won't talk about it too much here. I have an entire series. You should read the book Secular Age. It's actually really helpful. It allows you to avoid the boomer narrative that the 60s happened, God was taken out of school, the Novus Ordo and Vatican II, next thing you know, everybody's out there just totally hating on God. That's boomer talk. No, it's the same thing. I've never seen black people at Novus Ordo masses that you attend. It doesn't matter. Margaret. Your guest seems to me to be addressing members of the church that he feels need specific correction. An entire movement. Yeah. Balkanize and persist. I'm so sorry. Recognize and resist. Same thing. It's just a synonym. Let's see. I feel like claiming, Jen says, I feel like claiming the TLM is a slippery slope to sedevacantism is a bit of gaslighting. I didn't say the TLM was. I said balkanize and persist was, because balkanize and persist consists of a number of assumptions. Most ruling assumptions and authorities, frameworks and foundations, wherein and whereupon they make various decisions. These are pertaining to how they know what they know regarding authority or the proper interpretation, application of these things. And not saying that they cannot know anything. I'm not a skeptic on that. It says you can't know anything. But I'm saying if you believe you know something and the church insists that it knows it differently, and it's consistently over and over and over repeated that, you're more likely wrong. You should pray about that. You should pray for understanding, not that the church would change and be more like you. He talks about hippie rocker. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes it. But you're still talking about terrible things. You're still in the realm of they deserve as many deaths. Yeah. But my goodness, it's 1 in a million, in my opinion. The Novus Ordo is a slippery slope to Protestantism. That's weird. You know how many people have come into the faith, by the way? It's like one of those, it's one of those things, they say it's a slippery slope to Protestantism. Again, you're imputing upon the church something. I don't impute that upon the TLM about sedevacantism. I don't do that. But look at what's happening here. Again, people, they can't help themselves. Jen can't. She can't help herself. They don't even just correlate it. It's a cause. And maybe in that one it's correlated. It's like, well, it's a slippery slope, right? Maybe there's other factors. I have to grant, in fairness, that that's probably true. Is Paleocrat the Catholic Jay Dyer? How dare you? No, I'm not going to bash the guy. I'm not going to bash him. We obviously have major time disagreements. But as he's aware, I was talking about Catholic presuppositionalism back in the days of Zanga. I don't know if he had a website. He didn't have Jay's analysis back then. He didn't have a YouTube channel. So I don't really know what he was doing. I mean, we talked before on the phone, but I knew him. We have mutual friend. The guy who helped to lead me into the church, in fact, is a mutual friend, him and his wife. Not Dyer's wife, my buddy's wife. Okay. And so we've talked before that, right? But that's it. Let's see. Michael says, I thoroughly appreciate the meaty yet amicable discussion here. Dude, thank you, bro. I appreciate that. Which is what Cameron O'Hearn indicated was one hope of the fruits of his Mass of the Ages trilogy. A number of times in this interview, Jeremiah Bannister expressed concern about people who say Rome has lost the faith. However, in an apparition message approved by the Church, the Blessed Mother of La Salette in 1846 said, quote, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. The church will be eclipsed. I would like for people, let's see, let me see here. I may have La Salette still opened up. Do I? Yeah. Oh, no. Hold on. Okay. I thought I left the stream and it said end stream. I do not. Oh, no. I apologize for that. I apologize for that. Yeah. I went on the wrong thing. I'm like, oh no, this is bad. This is bad. Okay. So we're going to go do a different thing. Again, I apologize. I just vanished. So arcane, right? The authentic message of La Salette. Right? And here you have the false version. Right? And it's circulated under the title Apparition of the Blessed Virgin on the Mountain of La Salette. It's a French tract. Okay? After years of moving from convent to convent, never progressing beyond the novitiate, Melanie stayed in Castellamare from 1867 onward. She claimed she was authorized to provide their rules and habits. This request was denied by the bishop and by the Pope himself. It is in reaction to this thorough rejection by the church hierarchy that Melanie wrote her new tract full of bitter invective against the supposedly faithless clergy. Yeah. The third printing, 1922. It finally resulted in Rome's placing it on the tract on the index of forbidden books in 1923. Yeah. And you can see it for yourself. And so what I'm wondering is, are these things, are the claims of the faithlessness of the church, where are they included? I'd like to know more about this. Help me out with that, by the way. Help me out with that. In fact, there was a list of it. There was a list of things that were said. Let's see, time not far away. If I remember right, that would have been the stuff that was on that. So that would not have been Melanie's secret. Recovered from the archives in 1999. Happened on September 19th, 1846. Yeah. Help me out with that. Let me know. Let me know. Moving on. Does Mass of the Ages make you a magisterium-hating mad trad or a magisterium-loving glad trad? I think that, again, my criticism was that the movie was, in fact, naturalistic. That it had a naturalistic ecclesiology. That it took as supreme natural reason in order to judge the church. That it was autonomous, individualistic. That it determines for itself, enthusiastic, and that it says that this is not just something that's not as good, but attributing to it a whole host of things that are negative. In fairness, they're coming out with part 3. It still means part 2 is on its own, though. That's the problem. Part 2 is still on its own. But yeah, if you're over with me, you will be a magisterium-loving glad trad. That is just a fact. Padre Pio would be so pleased with Jeremiah Bannister. I don't know if I'd say that. I think, it's like one of those things you go to confession, you'd be like, he would know. I'd be spooked. Sean says, indeed, I believe he would be glad of Jeremiah defending against the calumnies and attacks on the bride, that this is inspiring. Katie says, of course this paleocrat would be reduced to calling the TLM attendees racist. I never said that. Can you imagine that there might be a number of reasons why you would have the predicament you do on the demographic level that doesn't involve you being, down with Mr. Mustache Man or something? Or those dudes in the crazy, weird, white, pointy hats? Did you ever think that? Try better. Come on, Katie. Lou. Oh, this guy. Why is he in here? Why is this dude in here? He didn't see negativity in the film. Did you see naturalism? He said, edited to add, 3430. Wow. I bet he's as proud of that crypto SETI line as he is of his credentials he touts at the start of the movie. Of the movie he could have made if he wasn't ankle biting this one, and tone policing and concern trolling those who see the literal mass of the ages for what it is. This guy's actually a decent actor, by the way. I've seen some of his videos. I checked you out, bro. I checked you out, Lou Lasher, right? And yes, I am a little bit proud of the crypto SETI line. A little itsy bits, okay? Call them semi-SETIs. Maybe that's even better. Semi-SETIs. I don't know. What do you think? I think crypto sounds pretty good, though, don't you? I mean, be honest about that. It's a functional word. It's functional. It means that, because people go, well, yeah, but they accept the Pope. And you go, yeah, but when you ask them to describe the Pope's powers, when you ask them to describe the church, her infallibility, indefectibility, immutability, you ask them to talk about that. When you ask them to talk about obedience, all of that stuff, they are functionally cut off. They don't care. They may even doubt, canonizations, everything else. It doesn't matter to them. The first thing, oh, brother, Pope Francis, Bergoglio. Did you hear that new thing Bergoglio did? What a Protestant. I need to pray for his salvation. He's a raging heretic loser. You know how many times we hear that? Yeah, crypto. Crypto big time. And by the way, why, just so people know, because this came up, people are like, he's touting his credentials. I was asked to host a show on a channel that's not my own. And I was asked for a specific reason. At the pleasure, in fact, of Cameron O'Hearn. And it was because of specific things, arguments I made, and the fact that I have a background in a certain thing that is relevant to the movie and relevant to him. But people on Mass of the Ages, most of them wouldn't even know who I was. So you introduce yourself. It's why he introduced himself on his own channel. So I introduced myself because I was hosting a show. People probably confused a little. He introduced himself on his own channel because we're going to use that as a replay on other channels, like the one I'm on now. So yes, credentials, and yes, dude, I earned them. I've done a lot of work. I'm 44 years old, man. It's been my job. You would be okay to give credentials for what you do with your acting, in fact. You went to school for it? Are you shy of that? Or can you just say, yeah, I do acting. I went to acting school and stuff. Is that okay to do? Is it okay for you to say, yeah, I've done a couple different things in acting and I'm talking to a guy who's talking about theater. And because of that, he thinks some of my ideas are pretty good. If you're introducing people for the first time to your work, tone policing, ankle biting. By the way, just to be clear, I don't know why people even had the idea that I would want to make that movie. It was a recurring theme in the comments. Oh, Jeremiah, he wants to make the movie himself. He wishes he could have done that. That's why I say the magic crystal ball thing. You're literally pulling it out of your rear. Like, seriously. You know me. Me no want make movie. Ask my wifey. Zero interest in that. If for no other reason, yeah, do I enjoy movies? Yeah. Would I ever want to write a screenplay? Probably. That'd be kind of dope. But for like theater like you do. Not for a movie. Like the idea, I've got lighting and stuff here. I struggle with sound and latency and stuff. I've struggled with that. Anyone watching my show knows that. The idea that I'm just going to roll in there and say, I don't care about the sound. I like movies because guys who work in those movies care about sound. Plus, I don't have the visual eye for that sort of a thing. You have to have a director's eye. I have an editorial eye for like journalism and stuff. I've done that. But I don't have an eye that's like in the moment that if I was envisioning how to move forward with it, that I would understand or think the way that Cameron does. That's why I said he is uniquely situated. So again, if he's uniquely situated, why would I say, yeah, I really wish I was the one. I wish I was the one. Why couldn't I have done that? What a joke. What a joke. God is not a God of confusion. His house is a house of order. So I disagree with the comment. The man behind the curtain is the Holy Ghost. We're talking about things promulgated by the Pope. If you do not believe that the Holy Ghost is behind ecumenical councils and things that are promulgated pertaining to faith and morals for the worldwide church, and you don't think that the Holy Ghost is connected with that, blasphemy. Blasphemy. That's blasphemous nonsense. Please stop, Fatima fan. Yeah. Why would you do that? I'm hoping you don't really believe that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, someone said found the Salette. Oh, yeah, thank God for the magical monocle. That cat, again, that's another one. That is another person. Yeah, somebody said name calling doesn't help. GC is H. I think there was some decent stuff there. Oh, here it is again. Paleocrat's jealous. keeps pushing his film expertise. I had a podcast called Paleo Cheese. We only talked about movies. There's movies and books. I'm not an expert in that. But that idea, and by the way, media theory and media ecology is not necessarily the same thing as film theory. I know enough to say that, but I have studied film theory and talked about it. It's why I'm not some rando Joe. It's why you're not on there, Katie. I mean, maybe, are you? Are you? And lashing out at Rome is his big argument. But Rome brought it on itself. The Roman See. St. Irenaeus, you were totally wrong. You didn't understand. Rome brought it on itself. We're glad we've got you, Katie. We are glad. If it wasn't for Katie, Lord, I believe these things and all the other truths that the Catholic Church teaches because of Katie. Because Katie's got it. She knows the real truth. And if she, oh no, I don't know the real truth. I don't know that. Why are you saying that I'm saying I know that? Because you're saying it. Well, no, I read some good blogs. I prayed a lot. Come on, Katie. Come on, girl. Yeah. No, Lou's back. Very early on in this video, I thought it sounded like he should just make his own movie. I don't think so, homie. I don't think so. I'm grateful for Stephen Stewart. I agree with this. Film, music, and literary criticism requires sensitivity, competence, and familiarity with the art under consideration, but does not require one to be an artist to judge their merits. I loved your analysis about 75% of the time. You're an asset to the church. Paleocrat isn't jealous. He's a Catholic with legitimate questions. I don't agree with some of the criticisms, but it's extremely uncharitable to assume that he's jealous. Again, thank you. F2, you should watch him before commenting. He's actually a really nice guy. Who are you, F2? I appreciate that, Home Slice. He's actually a really nice guy who's like across the board by Catholic YouTubers. I'm liked across the board. Carl says, how is Paleocrat jealous? He just introduced himself. Then asked questions any producer, director should be able, in fact, to answer. Yeah, I'm going to skip over that. Hey, Jeremiah, this is Brian. I don't disagree with some traditionalists in their approach. May lead to sedevacantism. Personally, though, it has been traditionalists that have kept me from sedevacantism. I think that's why it's important to talk about crypto-sedes. It's important to talk about enthusiasm. It's important to talk about suspicionistas. Monocle man. These are all fancy phrases, fancy, that we use on the show that are indicative of beliefs at a presuppositional level, right? Under the surface, flying under the surface. That question, right? That their actions reveal and that their words reveal that, in fact, those assumptions that they have down there sound a lot more like Luther at Worms than they do of saints throughout history. That's why we say they have Worms in their brain and enthusiasm in their veins. Yeah. I'm not a sedevacantist because I believe it's more complicated than that. Okay? Yeah, maybe because I have a series on it. I won't go into too much detail about that. Minority Voice. Anyone who does not know what factions were involved in the council, what their ideas were and their aim, how the council developed, then you'll always fall back on the Holy Ghost, right, that it guides the council and that is divinely inspired, and then never questions why it was needed, all the changes and all the effects have been. This guy likes the show. He says awesome and that he loves it. And he says, for your information, I love your show. Yes, he's actually right in a way that if people don't know about all those details, they fall back on it. And I say that that's why he accepts councils from a long time ago. I say that's what it is. That we have less reason, in fact, to trust those. Because we have less information and access to information about the inner workings and nuts and bolts of those. We have way more in a day and age with mass communication, travel the way it is, international travel, recordings, videos, audios, doesn't matter. But I said I'd do it. I'm going to skip over KMO. I'm going to skip over him. We talked about him. I don't want to make it personally. I'll say this about Taylor Marshall. right? For the record, one of the people who Jeremiah calls a crypto-city is Taylor Marshall. Yes, it's a functionalist term. Yes. For how many months has it been? People can. Somebody shared yesterday that he was bashing Sedevacantists. Irrelevant. Just as irrelevant is when he says, "I believe the Pope." What, Bergoglio? Bergoglio the heretic? Give me a break. I'm glad he's come around. If he's come around, I'm glad. He's kind of admitted, without even knowing it, that maybe I was right all along. But the idea that my views are shaped by a parish community that I'm part of, partially true. They are. It's one of the reasons why I don't believe that people need to be crazy enthusiast crypto setters. It's one of the reasons why I think that it's bad. Because I've seen a priest for many years make huge, gigantic changes because he did not slay his superiors with the sword of his word. I've watched it. In different dioceses, by the way. But to say that I'm incapable of seeing the crisis in the church, again, I was actually a Sedevacantist. Yeah, that I'm unable to see. It's like my eyes have been gouged out. Been gouged out by obedience and humility and reverence. No. How about this? Bring on some of these YouTubers. Taylor Marshall, for example. By the way, Taylor Marshall people who not only have stuck around, they vanished, by the way. When he started doing the crypto-city crap, I haven't changed my view. When he started doing that because he was red-pilled, and it's retroactive, he's going back in time with the red pill. When he was doing that, all of a sudden, there were fans of the show. They kind of disappeared for a while. They lurked in the shadows. And when they came back, they were, "How dare you come against Dr. Taylor Marshall? How dare you?" Easy. I think he's wrong, and he's not a superior. I'm allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say what you say. He's not allowed to say what he says. He should be careful, by the way. He should have tremendous amounts of fear. He should be afflicted, in fact, with penitence. But. Even Cameron couldn't follow your arguments at some points in this video. Throwing around smitten by the sword of the word and thinking that this settles it without explaining what your point is. Read. It's publicly available. It's by a saint. Pope St. Gregory the Great. Pope Leo the 13th. Read. Stop being a lazy person. Stop wanting to be spoon-fed. Go read. And then when you're done, obey. Submit. What's wrong with you? Seriously, what's wrong, man? What is wrong with you for realsies? It's crazy, Tom. Let's see. Yeah, how about I bring them on? Instead of, attacking them from the sidelines, from the safety of your own Telegram channel or show. Dude, he's the most self-guarded person in the universe. He blocks people. He's notorious. I mentioned it to when Mass of the Ages shared the tweets and stuff with me about it. I couldn't see any of them. I told him, I can't see it. He banned me like years ago. Oh, yeah, he does that all the time. It's what they said. In this business, we all know that. Outside of this business, everybody knows that. He's super guarded. I'd contend a little bit cowardly, in fact. And on the sidelines, I'm on Reason and Theology and Meaning of Catholic, and my articles can be found at 1 Peter 5. I was on Mass of the Ages channel. We had 800 comments live in the live chat. Over 6,000 views in like 24 hours. The idea that I'm on the sidelines, I don't know. Let's see your YouTube channel. Topanga. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just wondering when I'll be able to attend a TLM without being roped into the generalizations of being a rad trad, heretic, schismatic, sedevacantist, arrogant, etc. When that community begins to walk away from those very vocal people who have come by the numbers to represent them, and not unfairly, because those people are popular because they're popular, because people buy into that. By the numbers, it is evident. Unless you want to say there's just a bunch of non-Catholics always tuning in, a bunch of non-trads. That, oh no, the majority of these people, their listener base is really a bunch of these feminist atheists. Really? You want to say that? Or do you want to say that these guys are actually really popular in those communities? And all they ever do all the time is bash the church, bash the church, bash the church. If you don't want that anymore, then why don't you begin doing what I'm doing and publicly speak out against them? And by the way, I go to the TLM. And guess what? I'm not roped into that. Why? Because I'm very vocal in opposition to people who are enthusiasts, heretics, schismatics, sedevacantists, cryptosedes, suspicionistas, monocle men, you name it. Because I take a stand against them. I'm not with them. That's what I'm getting flack for. I'm not with that person. That's cuckoo town. Seeing people take joy in the restrictions being placed on the TLM. Maybe you guys know people like that. Oh, the bad tread says that. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, probably because of the stuff you said, by the way. Last two. Topanga, it's funny. You said all the proof you need that trads are divisive is to read the comment section. But the meanest, rudest, most divisive person in the comment section is you. The original commenter made a respectful analysis of the information you gave in the interview. No, they didn't. KMO actually goes back quite a way. The day before, was it the day before the show? Left the Wolfpack chat because he was saying the darndest things. I called him a liar on my chat, just straight out. I've never done that. I've never had somebody say something so that misrepresented me so badly that I just responded with one word, liar. Again, maybe I could have clarified that. But I was trying not to bring stuff that happened in my chat in there, but yet still recognize who I'm dealing with. You seem like a nice person, Topanga. And you said I'm the meanest and the rudest. Let me clarify with this. I called people things like Dionne Warwick and Miss Cleo. There was another guy, too. I had to look him up. Believe it or not, I don't know a bunch of names of psychics, men or women, other than, Miss Cleo. Miss Cleo. I don't even do a good voiceover. I sound more like Dracula. Or Dionne Warwick, the Psychic Friends Network. I use that phrase and joke around about people looking in their magic crystal balls that they get out of the Cracker Jacks box. Because in their statements about me, they're saying things that it's like one of those things where, like, if I were to say something about you, and I won't even say anything bad about you, but if I said something bad about you that was in your heart or the reason why you did something, and I spoke it matter-of-factly, and I coupled that with the idea that I knew you in a way that was like, oh, his kids go here, or, her family does this and other things. You could easily go, dude, you don't know me. Where do you even get off doing that? That's my way of doing that. They're playing with a magic crystal ball. They're pretending to have super secret magical insights into my life, into my heart, into my mind, into the motivations that I have, the aspirations that I have. They claim to know it. But they're wrong. And so I shoot back at that. I counterpunch at that. Why do I need to be respectful of that? That's terribly presumptuous. Why? Is it possible to use excessive force? Yes. There's no need to call people ugly names. Dionne Warwick is not an ugly name. Miss Cleo is not ugly, the name. Miss Cleo kind of sounds kind of cool. She was a psychic. That's not cool. But ugly names? Oh. I said all those are real people. And just so people know, this is what I'll say here. This is a composite. I didn't want to go through every single post. And I tried to only deal mainly with the ones that had, mainly tonight, serious considerations. But this is a composite of things from the live chat and the comment section. Paleocrat is a Pharisee, a modernist heretic promoting papalatry, a Protestant cult of personality on an anti-tradition crusade, shrill and incoherent. And he hasn't studied these issues, so he's dismissive, incapable of seeing there's a crisis. So he tries to mix people up, telling trads to shut up and accept the Novus Ordo. Oh yeah, and he's just jealous because he didn't make Mass of the Ages. So now he's just ankle biting, tone policing, concern trolling, always touting his credentials from the sidelines. Yeah, seriously, forgive me if my eyes are literally rolling into the back of my head. But that's what it was. That's what it was. And talking about that I had chances for dialogue. Back to old Lou. Old Louie. I'm not going to call you Lou. That's my son. You're just Lou. Right? Saying that I wasn't attacked. That composite was made up of, 24 different comments? At least other people. In fact, Topanga said it. You know, I liked it the way she said it. It's too small on the screen. I'll just take it off. This is over anyway. This is the end. I'm really grateful for her, by the way. All differences aside, grateful. She said, I can see how the more unkind criticisms are what sticks out to you the most. They're the only things that I'm going to deal with in a YouTube live chat. I think YouTube live chats or YouTube comment sections are toxic. I think they're dumpster fires. I think they're actually bad for people in general. That's why I don't ever you'll never see me really over there unless somebody is just straight up lying about me. I can't say I wouldn't feel the same way, though I do wonder what you expect the reaction to be given your demeanor and the way you spoke about trads. Okay. Demeanor, I think my demeanor was okay. I think I was sharp in my criticisms, and that's actually why I was invited on. What am I going to do? Play softball with that? Do you think that Cameron would want that? Do you? I hope you can sympathize with TLM goers a little more in the future. I sympathize with them so much I go there myself. I'm excited to watch your video on the Meaning of Catholic YouTube channel, and I hope you did. I hope you did. Yeah. Not entirely sure here. Oh, Brian. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no. Is this the same Brian who was in there talking junk? Is that the same Brian? Maybe. It's possible. Oh, no. In fairness, I don't think it's important that any YouTube chat questions, including my own, get answered. It's a YouTube stream with 50 people. I know, yesterday was 200 something. I never saw it go below 250 live at any given time. Never saw it. Never saw it. All right. And here we go. It's over. It's all over. We're done. We're done. Man, it is late. 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Come on. People are like, man, you missed Wednesday. It was true. I did. I missed Wednesday, didn't I? I did. I missed all of you. I didn't just miss doing the show. I missed you. But I always make up for it. I made up for it by doing Thursday's Mass of the Ages special. What goes down in history is the very first guest-hosted program on that channel. Hope you're proud. I work hard. I try my bestest. I do. Disagree, right? Pros, cons, all that stuff. You know, you can, of course, reach out to me. PaleocratDiaries. But you can know PaleocratDiaries@gmail.com. If you would like to debate, if you would like to do dialogue, which is really I prefer. I like what I did with Cameron, what I've done with Tim and others. If you would like to do that, if you'd like to interview me, if you'd like to connect with me for collaboration, all you got to do is email me, or even better, forget Gmail. Go to Telegram, link in the description below, and hit me up. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to connect with you. In fact, on the next episode, the next one, I'm going to be talking about this. Presuppositional apologetics. In fact, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow over at Paleocrat. Presuppositional apologetics, Reformed versus Catholic approaches. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. His name's Connor. Okay? And just so you know, Connor, like Cameron O'Hearn, I think is a dude maybe uniquely situated. Much better at me at what he does. And I think he's going to go a long way. We're going to talk about why tomorrow on Paleocrat. Comment section below or description. Till next time, never give up. Keep on smiling. Momentum more.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.